Sure. Good afternoon. Our illustrious president is not at his peak performance today, so he temporarily is going to try to feel better. Wouldn't take much. We're not going to reconvene the Board of Regent meeting. I'd like to call on Regent Milt McPike, who will chair the Physical Planning and Funding Committee.
Big shoes, and I don't know if I can really do it. I didn't bring my cheese. I didn't bring any complaints. I just came here to present the Fiscal and Planning Funding Committee wants to provide you some update and discussions on the recommendations from the State Building Commission. So with that, President Riley will give you some opening remarks, and then Vice President David Miller will do the rest.
Thank you, Regent McPike. I think we've all heard the statistics more than once about how the majority of our academic and student life facilities were constructed in the 60s and 70s during a national college building expansion when campuses were trying to accommodate those pesky baby boomer types. And we know these aging facilities are becoming obsolete for current academic instruction, even though those of us in the baby boom generation are not becoming obsolete for any reason. Academic instruction now needs to advance, to infuse advanced technology into the classrooms in our campuses. The good news, I think, is that the capital budget for 07-09, adopted by the State Building Commission last month, makes significant headway in improving our instructional and student life facilities for years into the future. Unlike those 30 and 40-year-old college buildings, today's college facilities are being designed to be much more flexible to accommodate the quickly changing needs of faculty, staff, and students. That flexibility, I think, will extend the benefit of the investment in these buildings well beyond the initial cost of the facilities. The capital budget is important to our students, to the growth agenda, and to the Wisconsin economy. Our students have been actively involved in planning these academic and student life projects, and students have demonstrated that the quality of the facilities matters in their selection of a university and in their educational experience. And David Miller will talk with us in a minute about a study to that effect. As we advance the educational opportunities for more students through the growth agenda, we need to ensure that we offer the technology and the labs and the classrooms necessary for a quality education for today and for tomorrow. So with that, I'll ask Assistant Vice President Miller to briefly outline the capital budget and discuss the next steps in achieving final approval through the legislative process. David.
Thank you, President Riley. As President Riley said, the State Building Commission passed a 2007-09 capital budget on March 19th. We are in the final stretch of getting that capital budget approved through the rest of the legislative process. The next steps will be a public hearing on next Wednesday, the 18th, in the Joint Finance Committee. In past biennia, the Joint Finance Committee has not held a public hearing on the capital budget. We think this is a good thing, because we think the institutions will be able to present a case based on long-range planning that this capital budget is both sound and significantly needed. What do I hit to go forward? Can you not do it from here? The study that President Riley was referring to is one that I've mentioned before, but I cannot resist coming back to it because of its breadth. Over 13,000 students at 46 North American universities replied to this study done by APA, the Facilities Association for Higher Education. And 74% said facilities related to their major were extremely important, or very important in choosing a college. And I think this is significant because the residence halls and other student life facilities were far lower, about half of that percentage. So the academic facilities are critical to where students end up going. And of course, students with the greater ability to choose are the ones that will exercise that choice. About 30%, interestingly, said they rejected a college because the facilities were inadequate. And I think that's something we really need to take note of as we talk about providing opportunities for Wisconsin students. So I mentioned we are very close to the end of a long process. And by the way, a lot of these I'm just going to flash through quickly because you have the packets in your folders, Regents and Chancellors and others, to refer to later. This is just a summary to give you an idea of the scale of the university's share of the capital budget. We have new major projects of about $117 million. We have projects that are currently in progress and additional money coming in that were enumerated in the last biennium of $100 million. I'm just going down this column to total $218 million of new major projects. And then you know there's this large fund for maintenance and remodeling that we will get about $125 million of that fund. So together we have about $343 million of general fund borrowing in this capital budget. That's of an entire state capital budget of $460 million. So we're right at 75% of the state budget. In addition, you can see that's only 28% of the capital budget. The remainder is gifts and program revenue. These are just examples of some of the projects, particularly the types of projects that are funded through the capital budget. Student life facilities, new academic facilities, large utility projects, and classroom renovations. Just to highlight one of the new academic buildings, let's look at UW-Superior. In addition to building a new academic building, we're actually solving a whole other problem, and that is getting rid of two terribly outdated, obsolete, very high maintenance, borderline unsafe buildings. One is Sunquist Hall. We had to do a $200,000 electrical project there 2 years ago just to keep the doors open until we could tear it down. So we'll be glad to tear it down. It was a 2-story residence hall with a 3rd story added. It's always leaked around the addition. It's never been a good thing since the first day. McCaskill Hall, also at Superior. Julius, you don't mind me saying all these things, do you? Yeah. McCaskill Hall is an old elementary school that's used for faculty offices and classroom instruction. It literally has all of the little potties and everything in it. It does. And we can't wait to tear it down and build this new academic building. So we're not just building space for the fun of it. It is quite critical. UW-Stout. I have to mention the one other project that's in here. Stout, Harvey Hall Theater. Even Governor Thompson, when he first took over chair of the Building Commission, I think called it condemnable at that time. It has been such a long time in coming, and I know that Stout is grateful that the board supported our making this a high priority for this biennium. This is just a list you have in your packets of all of the projects by campus. This is mixing both program revenue and general fund borrowing, but it gives you a picture of what's going on at each campus, new facilities. You do have in your packet a list of the projects, both general fund and non-state supported, with actual dollar amounts in your packets if you want those kind of details. A milestone in this capital budget is breaking through this sort of broken traditional process of enumerating a single project in a biennia and then beginning to plan it. Planning takes a good 18 months to plan a large new facility. And you're locking up all of that bonding revenue in a biennia, but you're not spending it. So we offered a new approach to the state, which has been accepted and endorsed by the Building Commission, and that is to plan 4 new academic buildings and fund them over 2 biennia. So the total of the 4 new academic buildings is $141 million, but there's no way we will spend all of that money in the first biennia. In fact, most of them will only come to bid near the end of this biennia. 07-09. So we're spreading the funding over 2 biennia that more closely matches the project's schedule, and therefore able to keep all 4 projects on track rather than starting one and having to delay the others even for planning purposes. While this is a very large capital budget, we have to keep it in the context of our overall state space. We have 60 million square feet of space. We're about 65% of all the space owned by the state. And this capital budget, these projects really only touch about 4 or 5% of that space. At $460 million, the entire state capital budget, all agencies, is really just getting back to about where it was in 01-03. And in the second bullet, if we adjusted the 01-03 budget at $445 million for construction inflation, this budget would be $98 million more. So we have significantly fallen behind past capital budgets in just keeping up with construction inflation. Even at $460 million, this capital budget leaves $430 million of state agency requests unfunded and deferred to future biennia. Again, this is all agencies, not just the university on this slide. Another milestone that is critical to this capital budget is monitoring the debt service that will be the result of all the general fund borrowing. The state has an unwritten policy that we want to keep it at 4% debt service to general purpose revenue. So capital accounting has done a projection that indicates that if all the borrowing occurs, debt service will peak at about 3.93%, which is significantly under, it may only sound like 7/10, it's significantly under 4% of debt service to general purpose revenue. And that's important because our message to the legislature is it is a modest, responsible, actually conservative capital budget. And we want to emphasize that so that the legislature, the rest of the legislature recognizes the Building Commission has done its job in managing this capital budget and doesn't feel a need to reduce it, frankly. The university has a large number of projects funded, about 36 in all, 17 general fund projects. But, again, for context, we have already received in our office requests for either held over from 07 or requests for funding in 09 of over 30 projects totaling over $440 million. So while this makes significant headway, we still have a very large backlog of major projects in need of funding. I mentioned reductions that are potential to come through the legislature because in both the Higher Ed Subcommittee and the full Building Commission in March, there were motions offered to reduce the $460 million to $400 million. And this slide is just to show the future impact of that reduction in this biennia. On the left, this column shows projected growth at simply 3.5% annual inflation. By 2013, the capital budget would be about $548 million at that rate of growth. If we back up and start at $400 million this biennium instead of 460, the cumulative loss of that is $216 million to the capital budget. And I realize this slide could be used for exactly the opposite purpose, to say, well, that's how you control growth. But again, there are a lot of external factors, such as debt ratings, interest rates, and the debt service to general purpose revenue ratio that control that level. So the message really is that it is premature to reduce this capital budget at this time. And finally, this is the last slide, it's a significant economic impact. This is a very large industry that supports a great deal of very good paying jobs for people in Wisconsin and a lot of businesses. a conservative estimate of jobs created in a typical $10 million project for only the construction labor portion of expenditures on that project is about 48 jobs at $40 an hour. That's without any economic multiplier at all, just straight wages to laborers in that project. That's not counting all the jobs created through the material purchases and businesses supported through that. If you take that same formula and apply it to the university's capital budget, which is $779 million, just the construction labor jobs created are nearly 4,000. The industry-wide acceptable economic multiplier is 2.2%, nationally widely accepted multiplier for this industry. Using that, the university capital budget would create in the state over 20,000 jobs. Granted, those jobs are jobs for the life of the project, but that's why it's important to have a predictable and growth in the biennial capital budget, and that keeps the jobs going. The converse of this is you can use the same formula and look at the job loss by reductions in the capital budget. So thank you very much for the opportunity to present this today. As I said, we have a hearing in the Joint Finance Committee next Wednesday. The Joint Finance Committee will be voting on this package soon after that and fold it into the operating budget, and we hope it stays intact. Any questions? Or?
Well, before I ask my question, Mr. President, we were at Whitewater last week on our special committee, and they announced that they're tearing down the dorm that I stayed in. Well, they offered to sell me a brick. David, could you put your slide back up? I think it was the third one of the list of buildings.
I don't know.
Oh. Oh, boy. Yeah, I think it's the next slide. Okay, here you go. Could you point out the buildings that are to be financed by program revenue, and then of those buildings, the ones that are going to be paid by student segregated fees?
Certainly, sure. At Eau Claire, the academic building is in planning. It's not funded yet, but there is money in the budget for planning. The Davies Center is the student union, that's seg fees. Extension Lowell Hall is program revenue from guest room rental. Green Bay is general fund borrowing. La Crosse academic is general fund. The stadium and fields is all gifts. At Madison, the continuation of Wisconsin Institute is mostly gifts and already existing borrowing. University Square is some seg fees, some general fund. Sterling Hall is general fund. Human ecology is half gifts, half general fund. Parking is parking fees. Residence hall are residence hall fees. Music performance is all gift funded, and the student union and union theater is all segregated fees. At Milwaukee, North Wing remodeling and physics will be state funded. There's funding for programming and planning, the idea of a new engineering campus, a new public health campus. In Oshkosh, the academic building is general fund and gifts. Softball is segregated fees or student or program revenue? Gives. Thank you. Residence hall is residence hall fees. Facilities maintenance is general fund, as is Elmwood. Parkside Communication Arts is general fund and gifts. Residence hall is res hall fees. Platteville, this is the general fund portion of Tri-State. Williams Fieldhouse is program revenue. River Falls, Health and Human Performance is general fund and gifts. Again, that's only planning. The residence hall is residence hall fees. At Stevens Point, military science and maintenance are general fund. Residence halls are residence hall fees. At Stout Harvey Hall is general fund. Price Commons is segregated fees, I believe, and at Superior, the academic building is gifts and program general fund revenue. Whitewater, Drummond Hall is program revenue, Residence Hall, this is all program revenue and gifts. So the segregated fee portions are Madison, the Union, and the theater, that's $126 million. The Davies Center is $48 million, new student union for renovation remodel, and Price Commons, a roughly $8 million project.
And have we've approved this in the Regents, in our budget?
All of these have been approved except those that are only in planning, which are 3 projects.
Motion to reduce this amount. Let me ask you about that's failed up to this point.
It failed in the building commission, but only 5-3.
What has been the rationale given for the motion to reduce, and have they specified specific, that's redundant, specified projects that would those who made the motion hope would be affected by it?
The motion was to take $60 million out of the all-agency fund, that portion where we would be receiving $125 million toward maintenance and remodeling projects. That was the motion at the Finance Committee. Another idea that was publicly discussed was cutting the overall bonding level from $460 million to $400, specifying that all of that would come from the university and then send it back to us to decide where that reduction would occur. So there's not discussion of cutting specific projects thus far, but every project would virtually be impacted with that kind of reduction.
And the rationale has just been overall.
The rationale has been the slide that I showed of past capital budgets since '01, not exceeding last biennium's amount, which was 400. So let's not bond more than we did 2 years ago was the stated rationale.
David, can you just, when you were talking about splitting the funding over biennium, can you just explain to me why it takes so long? I mean, 18 months to 2 years sounds like before in this planning. What happens in that process that causes it to take that period of time?
I'm just going to be blunt. What do I have to lose? You know,
Chancellor Wells started us off, and we've been downhill ever since.
The brutal fact is, there's too many cooks in the kitchen. That's what's wrong. There's too many touches to a project, and the Department of Administration has statutory responsibility, not this board and not the UW system, for all of our facilities. They have complete statutory responsibility. And so you overlay that on the university process, and by the time it gets through so many different reviews, there were reviews of the same thing. We had a meeting, we have a lot of frank discussions about this process, and we had one with leadership at DOA a couple of days ago, and they said to me it was their prerogative to determine whether or not a campus needed an academic building or not. And I said, no, it is not. That's the Board of Regents' prerogative. And once we decide that at the Regent level, then that's the end of the review of whether or not that's the project that should be done or whether it should be some other project. So there's a significant discrepancy in the state about that process. But in addition, when a campus makes a proposal, the campus will write up the draft request for architectural services, for example. Our office reviews it thoroughly. We work with the campus to fine-tune it, get the scope of the project right, all for the privilege of sending it to DOA to start the project over, to start that review over again. And some of those arguments go on for months. Chancellor Wells, months. We thought in January we had a blanket authority to build a barn at Madison, at Arlington, with a design build process. Because, barns have been very expensive for us to build through the traditional process. And the Building Commission said, go ye, therefore, and do it as cheaply as you can. You have all the flexibility you want. We have not been able to get that out of the Department of Administration yet. Kate, is it out yet? It is posted finally, but it should have been posted within weeks, 2 or 3 weeks. So there's too many people touching it. Most Board of Regents in most even state universities are the final arbiter of these things and manage the process themselves. So,
just to add to that, Regent Pruitt, this was one of the areas outlined in the Charting the Course study where we sought some regulatory relief, shall we call it, and we haven't gotten any of that yet.
David, just in case you're going to use these slides as part of your defense or whatever mode you're going to be in, and remembering from the presentation this morning how we all fall down in math, if we're not spending those dollars you're proposing for this year in the current biennium, you should adjust those for inflation also. It makes your case better not to, but if somebody might pick up on that.
yes, I see what you mean. If it lapses and isn't spent, yeah. Thanks. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Back to you.
With the Physical Planning and Funding Committee,
You're not going to send it someplace else, are you?
no, I believe
Okay,
that
all
Jesus called and said, could you leave Milt and his group in the large room?
Thank you. Thank you.
That's what we're going
Thank
to
you.
do. Chancellor
That will be
Wells,
my request.
could you direct traffic, please, for the committee meetings?
The physical facilities planning meeting is in what I call the parquet room, which is basically room 202, going down this hall all the way down through the renovated old edition of the Student Union and take a left. And to Regent Salas, I'm sorry he's not here. It's the most beautiful room, the parquet floor, and it looks great. So you tell them about that. I appreciate that. And then let's see, the Finance Committee, the most important one in a lot of ways, is right upstairs in room 307. So just go up the stairs in 307, and people will direct you there.
Education Committee. Thanks, sir.
exactly right. Right. Right, right. Right. Right, right, right. Right. Well, and see, the other thing that I thought it was important that we send a message to them is we encourage you to have the courage to do this. You know what I mean? We just love the fact that you did that. You know, we're not mad at you because of what you discovered. You know what I mean? They didn't get any of that. They didn't get any questions that said, what the hell's the matter with you? They didn't get that flavor at all. Right, right. Yale and Stanford, right, right. Right. Exactly. And with that, you are saying, aren't you? Are you?
It's more
Oh, okay. That's fine. We appreciate it. Okay. The Education Committee will please come to order. Will the Secretary call the roll, please? Here.
Regent Spector. Here. Regent Crane. Here. Regent Keene. Here. Regent Loftus. Here. Regent Simmons.
He's here. We'll just, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of March 8th, 2007, our meeting of the Education Committee? Mike Spector's moved, and Judy, I'll consider you a second. Any discussion on the minutes of March 8th? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Anybody? Motion carries. Well, our first item is 11B, and it includes 3 program authorizations. 1, a Bachelor of Science, a Bachelor of Arts, and a Bachelor of Applied Studies. We'll first hear from Provost Virginia Helm at UW-Stevens Point on their BS in biochemistry. Provost Helm? Welcome. I know. Pretend we're intimate.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. All right. University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point is especially proud of our science departments, and it's because of the strength of our sciences that we are bringing to you today a new proposal for a major in biochemistry. Our primary presenter today is Dr. Jim Brummer, who is to my immediate right. He's chair of the chemistry department. I have to tell you, I was explaining to the group here where they would sit and how this would go, and he looked at me with a little bit of concern and said, "You mean I have to sit down to do this?" He's used to presenting standing up and walking around, so we'll have to cut him a little slack maybe. Next to him is Dean Lance Braun, who is Dean of our College of Letters and Science, and on his right is Professor Diane Caporal from the Biology Department. Before I turn this over to Jim, I would like to thank the UW System Office in Academic Affairs for all of the support and assistance they gave us as we did the final refining and polishing of the program itself and the presentation. They were very, very helpful. And so, Jim, take it away.
Thank you. Am I good?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to thank Diane Caporal again. She was the original person working on the curriculum for this major and really started the process going. Again, we're proposing to establish a Bachelor of Science major in biochemistry. I hope today to outline the reasons for that. One, I would say, is primary reason is that our students, we have a percentage of students in chemistry and biology through the years who are very interested in molecular biology, biochemistry. Biology and chemistry have really come together at the edges here, and really students in molecular biology, they really need a good chemistry background to understand that subject area.
There's also, I believe, a need for biochemistry trained graduates in the Wisconsin workforce. So, Wisconsin is one of the top states in the nation for biotechnology growth. The newsletter, online newsletter Fierce Biotech in 2006 rated it in the top 5. There's obviously a lot of biotech, bioscience growth occurring in Madison and Milwaukee. Our chemistry majors and biology majors are already, securing positions there. This program will train students to work in bioscience laboratories and research hospitals. The Marshfield Research Foundation, the Medical College of Wisconsin are 2 examples. It'll train students to work in biotechnology industries, bioscience industries, and pharmaceutical companies. I've gotten calls from SAF State Pharma and Covance laboratories within the last year asking about our chemistry majors and our biology majors. There's definitely a need for trained biochemists in Wisconsin. In